Hey there, welcome to the Growth Whisperers, where everything that we talk about is building enduring great companies. My name is Brad Giles, and as always, I'm joined today by my co-host, Kevin Lawrence. Hello, Kevin, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brad. Actually, I'm set up in a new spot, kind of a new location, so like a new mini studio. So I've been scrambling around today to get all the things set up, and everything's working. I worked so hard to make sure I had all the things I needed, and I forgot one part. But thankfully, there's a store about 15 minutes away that had the part I needed, and yeah, so I'm good. Grateful that people stock every electronic gadget you can imagine close by.
Good to hear. Good to
How about
hear.
yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I had 4 days in our southwest, beautiful part of Australia, and came back last night. Here for recording today, but yeah, just spring in the southwest of Australia is a very, very special place. So,
Awesome.
yeah. And so, tell me, we always like to start with our word of the day or phrase of the day. What is on your mind?
Mine is winding down. Our summer is ending. It's getting colder, darker earlier. Yeah, so it's kind of like winding down for the summer. I mean, the better word would probably be transition. Transition from summer to fall. Transition's better. I don't like the idea of winding down. Transition. That's my word.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, and mine would be slightly related to today's episode, customer feedback. So the place where I stayed, there's a QR code on the wall, and you can use your smartphone and it'll take you to a Google form, and it just asks you some simple questions about your stay in a way that I hadn't seen before. So yeah,
Smart.
customer feedback is what I'm thinking. So winding down customer feedback is the mash.
Interesting. We'll take that. All right.
Take that.
We actually want to wind up customer feedback, which is actually what we're talking about today, which is a beautiful transition into today's topic, Brad. So why don't you tell us what we're digging into today?
Yeah. So we're talking about 4Q or the 4 questions. And this really is a part of customer feedback. And what if we take a step higher than customer feedback, what we advocate is that leadership team members have a qualitative and a quantitative point of data from both customers and employees. So we've got qualitative and quantitative from customers, and we've got qualitative and quantitative from employees. And
Yes.
that should frame all of the leadership team's thinking, because you're getting real and accurate feedback. Now, the quantitative often takes the form of something like a net promoter score or a customer satisfaction score, some kind of number base that we can work on. Whereas the qualitative comes from actual conversations with employees and actual conversations with customers. And so that last point is what we're talking about today. The 4 questions that we advocate that you as a leadership team member talk with customers about.
Yeah, and this is a serious problem in a lot of companies, is that it's wonderful when companies start to get data on employee engagement and customer satisfaction. The problem is one, you can get lost in the numbers, and two, you really got to hear their voices. So, the people that created the net promoter system for employee and customer satisfaction, they say consistently it's the system, not the score. I mean, the system, you got to read the comments and hear the feedback. So I was in a meeting this week in the US. It was nice to be back in the US again. But I remember we were getting they have like some of the best data on reporting customer and employee satisfaction, where they're at, by location, everything. It was really great data. The challenge is we didn't get any of the comments or the commentary. So basically we got the scores, but we didn't get the specific trends of what people were loving and loathing and or concerned about, or gaps. And it's so what happens is executives try to fly by number too much. Some don't fly enough by numbers. They don't have enough data. but some over rely. And I just finished a really good book this week by the CEO of Best Buy. It was the CEO who turned Best Buy around. And his name is Herbert Jolly, I believe. And the book is called The Heart of Business. I got both of those things right. That's awesome. Really good. But one of the things he talked about when he turned around Best Buy is he went and visited stores. And in stores, he watched and learned because he was new to the business. And he talked to people and talked to the associates, and he learned a ton about what the needs were and understood the business better. Now, that's great. And some people might do that in the beginning, but some of the best executives and CEOs stay connected, not through data and reports, but directly at the front lines. And what they end up doing, and we see this all the time, and this is why 4Q was invented, is people just play office too much. They're too busy administering the business and working on stuff, which is their job, but there's not enough time directly connected to employees and customers. So today, we're going to talk about directly connecting with customers and what people should do.
If you don't connect with customers, you make decisions based on perhaps not a full suite of information. So let's dig in and just clarify. What are the 4 questions that we're talking about? The first question, how are you doing? So this is really just framing the conversation in the way that the conversation will be completely about the other person. So how are you doing? Now, you can, as a recipient of that question, say, oh, well, I'm good. You could make it really, really quick. Or you could immediately jump into, I'm terrible because your systems suck. Or it could be
you could find out the other dog just died, or they just got a puppy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a human connection point. And this 4Q is a mini system. So it's a way to you're going to learn all kinds of interesting stuff. You might just connect, or you might get something incredibly relevant that will relate to your conversation.
Yeah. And then the second question is, what's going on in your industry/neighborhood? Now, that's obviously contextualized for B2B or business to business type sales or business to consumer type sales. And there could be something that's happening in your industry. If you're B2B, for example, we've got massive demand and we're having supply chain issues, or it could be anything at all. But that's another point of data that you can take back to the leadership team. Equally, in terms of your neighborhood, there could be something that's happening in your neighborhood that's relevant. So we're trying to mine for any of the data that we can.
And they're experts in their neighborhood and experts in their industry, and they're going to know stuff you would never have a clue about. So you're tapping into their core expertise and what they spend their days living and breathing that you can get from them in 2 minutes.
Next is the third of 4 questions. What do you hear about our competitors? Now, we don't have any other opportunity to ask this. And wouldn't it be interesting to take some of these answers back to our leadership team? Now, I've been running these questions for many years with leadership teams, and sometimes recipients will say, well, I don't think that's really appropriate for me to answer. Okay, no problem. It's just a survey that I've been asked to ask you.
But many will have lots to share.
Yeah, but other times we've got some amazing, amazing insights. I heard that they're shutting down their such and such operations. I heard they're starting up this. Some people are more than willing to share something about our competitors that can be fantastic info.
Yep.
And then the fourth and arguably one of the more important questions is, how are we doing? And this is qualitative. So it's not just a number, because that's where we can really begin to get the insights. How are we doing?
Yeah. And again, so basically the 4 questions: how are you doing? What's going on in your industry or neighborhood? What do you hear about our competitors? How are we doing? And the challenge is a lot of people will just go to, hey, how are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we taking good care of you? But you miss all that other scoop that can help you. That other stuff helps you as an executive more than it probably helps you with that specific customer, right? They're helping you with your intel. So, what happens, and the challenge is because we said earlier on, people are so darn busy, they don't do this. And when they do go and get a chance to talk to someone at one of their clients, sometimes they don't even know what to ask. And these 4 questions are great. So you could be the CFO, and when you're talking to their CFO about something, and whether it's on the way to a meeting or at lunch or on a call, it could be anyone that you're talking to, anyone in your organization talking to their organization, is a nice little simple check-in. And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful, wonderful way to do it. Now, there's kind of some points I want to talk about it, but the first main reason why this is important, is to I call it not playing office, or playing office too much. Brad calls it leaving the ivory tower, but the idea is the same. Is just get out there and get the goods, get a real pulse of what's going on, because what happens is people become way too insular if you stay inside. If you go out and talk to a bunch of customers, you can't help but pick up on different things and have different thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And these questions are framed, as you said, like this for a reason. It's all about them. But the other thing, it hasn't been polluted by other areas such as marketing, because marketing could want to get a hold of this and say, how about if we change the questions? What about if we asked about something about our new product or something about, and then suddenly it's gone from 4 questions to 11 questions, and no one wants to answer 11 questions that are about your product, because all of these questions, importantly, are about them. And so when we talk about leaving the ivory tower, if we've got a CFO, for example, on our leadership team, this person would very rarely get to interact with customers. And so then when we're meeting as a team, they don't really have that depth of experience in directly communicating and understanding what the customers want. But an important point is that it can be quite uncomfortable for some people to have these types of conversations. So an option around that is to have the CFO at our company talk to the CFO at our customers' companies. So having them talk to the relevant person in customer companies, which is a little bit hard, admittedly, in a retailer, in a B2C area. But we want to get people outside of the ivory tower. We want to get people to be actually communicating with customers. There was a retailer that I work with, and they hadn't spoken to customers in this sense for, I would say it would have been about 10 to 12 years where the leadership team had actually gotten out. And they made a whole range of assumptions. And so we set a quarterly target where we had to have 13 4Q conversations, each leadership team member, at least 1 per week. And the insights and the way that we changed the business was remarkable.
Yeah, because you're more in touch with what the customers want. Again, the business exists to take care of a customer, which is kind of the third point, which is understanding what's important to customers, because you're going to hear from them. And whether it's in a retail environment, a business-to-business environment, doesn't matter. Whether it's in the boardroom or the bathroom or the boiler room, doesn't matter where you're picking up stuff. And it keeps you super in touch, because you're listening to them directly versus thinking about yourself. The second one, so the first one is leave the ivory tower. Second is validate your strategy. This is also a great way to pick up some intel of what customers are thinking about you and thinking about your competitors, understanding their perceptions. And then you can also, even once you're in a conversation like this, it's an opportunity to run some other things by them you might be thinking about, like, hey, based on what you've said, how would you feel about this, right? Because you're into the conversation. You can use them as a sounding board, as they are, if they're part of the buying decision, or they're one of the users of whatever it is that you have to offer. You can get some additional intel that'll help you.
Understanding, what is it that matters to our customers, the data that we can pick up through that is really, really valuable. Obviously, that leads us on to the next one, learn about the industry. Because sometimes people in a leadership team may not have worked for many of our competitors, or the industry may have evolved and they haven't got some of those insights. So it's easy to think about this as a singular, but I think about another team that I work with, and we've done it for, I would say, 4 or 5 years. Every single quarter, we've gone out and we've had at least 1 or 2 4Q conversations in preparation for our offsite quarterly. And the stuff that we're learning, it's really affected the priorities that we set and the strategy that we set, because we're learning sort of up to the minute intel about the industry.
Yeah. And we don't have enough time to learn all those things. I was in a conversation just over the weekend, and with someone who I just met at an event, and I was asking them questions about their industry and what's going on out of personal curiosity. The amount of stuff I was learning about some changes and things that were happening was outstanding. And I am curious by nature. So with new people, it's natural. It's those existing relationships. And as we do this, I'm just thinking, I had a conversation with one of the CEOs we worked with last week, and I should have used the darn 4Q questions. I was just checking in how things were going. We're talking about things. And I should have asked them, and I didn't. I missed the opportunity last week. It wasn't top of my mind. So hopefully for those of you listening, it's going to be a good prompt for you. This is not rocket science, but when you're next with a customer and have a chance, some great questions to answer.
See, what's important about that is that this is structured feedback. So we're forcing leadership team members to talk to people, which is important. But then we're forcing them to listen. So because those 4 questions are all listening questions about them, and then document them and then share them on a regular basis with the leadership team.
For sure. The next one is learn about competitors. And again, as we've touched on a bit already, but there's, it's sometimes hard to get information on your competitors, or it's sitting there waiting for you. You just have to ask. Like a lot of things, when you meet a human being, you could ask them 1,000 different questions. And whatever you pick will set the tone of the conversation. And so if you miss that opportunity, there's great competitive intel awaiting you all the time. You just got to prompt it. And there's things that your competitors are doing that are good or not good. And just, being able to see and hear what's going on is incredibly valuable. Again, not rocket science. It's a great opportunity to dig into it rather than having it randomly show up occasionally.
Yeah, what if we had enough of our 4Q conversations come back with what matters to us is on-time delivery. And that was all that was in there. If you heard that once, or if you heard that 40 times, that's going to affect your business because it's real-time feedback from a diverse enough group of customers, or anything else. Now that could be coming because they're saying, what do you hear about our competitors? Well, they are really focused on being on time delivery, on having that work. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they're doing something around pricing, or they just lost some key people, or there's, one of our clients, we heard with a competitor, we heard that there was a vice president of a division that was loved by his people and the industry. And we heard that he had left. Well, it became a recruiting opportunity. We don't know where he went, but we know that he left, and we were able, in the end, we couldn't recruit him, but we were able to hunt him down. And then it also gave us a chance to go and directly contact some of his salespeople, because he was leading the sales team, because we know when a key leader leaves, people get a little bit loosened up sometimes, and some people are more willing to leave, especially when there's a leader they loved. So that little bit of intel, that I'll make it up, that Frank was leaving the business. Frank was amazing, tried to recruit him, but then we were able to contact some of his people because they would be the most open to hearing from us they ever would have been. Again, just little things like that.
Awesome. And then I guess number 6 is learn about our performance. How are we doing? That it's such an open and vulnerable question that it invokes trust, and you have to, as a customer, you have to respond to that. You have to say something.
Yes.
It's very hard to say, well, you're doing good if you've been really, really let down and you're thinking about going to another competitor or transferring some revenues. It's great to have accolades, but we don't want the accolades here. What we want is, you're doing really good, but this person named Bobby in sales, he's got no fans in this firm. I'll tell you that. He needs to go.
And that's the stuff that you need. And you might not always get that in a survey. And it's also the fourth question. So you've already talked about a whole bunch of things and they're warmed up, and you're more likely to get, as long as they're not in a hurry, more likely to get more goods as the conversation goes on and people settle in. So the main point here is it's not rocket science. People just, with great intentions, get busy playing office or doing their jobs and forget to reach out and talk to customers. It's also a little awkward for some people to do it unless they're in sales, but this is a structured way to get and push the team to get back into the market to see what's going on and understand it and get a much better grip. So I'll review the overall. So the 4Q questions. Number one, how are you doing? Just checking in with the human and how they're doing and what's going on. Those lots of points of connection that often come out of that. What's going on in your industry or neighborhood, depending on the situation? What do you hear about our competitors? That's a very juicy question with lots of intel. And then how are we doing? And not being afraid to dig in and get some more details about specifically what they like or what they don't. And then on those questions, Brad, you want to run through the 6 kind of different perspectives there?
Yeah. So why are they important? Number one is to leave the ivory tower. We want to get the leadership teams out of the ivory tower where they're only talking to one another. We want them to get some actual physical feedback from a customer verbally, not on a survey.
Yes.
Validate your strategy is number 2. So this helps us to understand that our strategy is working or isn't, or the things that we're starting to change are actually resonating. Number 3, understand what's important to customers. Because if we think that quality is what matters and all they tell us about is that things have to be on time, then we should be responding and understanding and digging deeper into that issue. Number 4 is to learn about the industry. We don't know everything about our industry. We have different perspectives and different experiences. So we will continue to learn about what's happening. And of course, then on to number 5, which is learn about competitors. We're understanding what are our competitors doing by asking that question. Then number 6, of course, is to learn about our performance, to learn about how we're performing the last question and what can we do better, always mining for gold in that area. Good chat today.
Yeah, it is. It's just a basic discipline that people don't do enough of, including, I should have caught myself not doing it last week when I could have and should have. And like Brad said, the thing that we'll often do with teams is to push them to go and make it a challenge over a quarter to go gather a whole bunch of feedback, particularly leading into a strategy session. And that way, if everyone's doing it, it makes it a bit more palatable and, nothing like a little peer pressure.
Yeah, surveys are good, but we can't rely on surveys. We need to have leaders talking to customers. So thank you for listening to the Growth Whisperers. I hope that you've gained some value today. As always, we're talking about building enduring great companies. That's what we talk about all the time. You can find the video version of this on YouTube just by searching the Growth Whisperers. And of course, we're on all the good podcast channels. So thanks for watching today. We hope that for listening today. Hope that you enjoyed, and we will look forward to chatting to you again next week.